Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the Business Barber Shop podcast. I am Chris,
I am Keen.
and here we go again. We had a guest last week. We have another guest this week. Talk more real estate investing, which I love because I just get to pepper everybody with questions. Before we get to that, though, if you have anything that, or if you like the show and you want to leave a review, that'd be awesome. Share it with somebody, that'd be awesome. Um, Send us a message and tell us how great we are. That would also be fabulous.
All five
So
of you.
that's right, all five, all five. We're gonna get number six pretty soon. That's gonna be awesome. Okay, so today we have a special guest. Jason Lee is in the house. Per usual, this is Keen's invite. He's the only one with friends and colleagues that want to come on the show. So I'm gonna
Chris, you gotta
let
work on your friend game.
no doubt. Do I though, or do I, or do I not? Or
No,
do I?
just shooting you shit.
That's right. All right. I don't like friends. I don't like friends. I have enough. I have as many friends as I need.
You love your friends. You just
That's
don't.
right.
You're not dying to have more.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's true. Oh
No.
well, the good ones are hard to find.
Yeah.
That's the truth.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Okay.
appreciate that.
All right. So I'm going to turn over to you to do like the formal introduction,
Mm-hmm.
and then off we go.
Yeah. I mean, Jason. I would say like Jason, friend, colleague. He was a client of mine before. We partnered on deals, right? Um, but I wanted to have Jason on because, I know a lot about like on paper, chronological history of like you doing the gas station with your brother and then building up the rentals. But, you know, you did a good job of building a portfolio without having like, well, let's just say it. I built my portfolio um, after I learned how to make a shit ton of money. Right. And so you were kind of like, hey, let me just kind of wing it. And as I kind of, because you were transitioning out of a business, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And while you're doing that transition out of it,
Put that mic up close.
Okay.
build,
Just pull it to you. It'll. There you go.
yeah. But you were transitioning out of ownership in the gas station, becoming a real estate broker, which you're not even a broker anymore. Now you're a lender with me in the office. Um, and but while you're doing those transitions and slowly going through a buyout with the gas station, still built. I mean, I mean, how much energy do you have when you first like started really like getting into doing stuff? Like when you bought that. So Jason, I also give the credit for it. Like I had this idea of how we should try to do some value add deals, and that was um, looking for existing small multifamilies to condo, right? This is before the whole Seattle ADU craze began. And I even found a deal, and I remember I showed it to a handful of people, and everyone else passed on it. I mean I should stop shit myself, but um, I remember thinking to myself, like, I know this is a deal. And so I went as far as like when the listing canceled, I mailed the owner, certified mail. It was like, I have people who are going to write an offer on this place and you canceled it. So if you still want to sell it, you need to reach out to me. I'm not a broker. I'm a lender. I would just finance it for the buyer. So if you're interested, let me know. And I paid for the certified letter, which has kind of been a practice in doing off market since then.
Mm-hmm.
And Jason was the one who actually stepped up and did it. You still own that property today, in fact.
I do.
Yeah. But we'll get to that in a little bit. But like, I would like to hear more about the exact process that you said, hey, I may not have, like when I came into the investing game, I was making over seven figures annually when I did my first personal value add deal. So for a lot of people, they'd be like, well, fuck you, you're making a lot of money. No wonder you have like this. But that's not how, let's just be real, right? That's how
Well,
people are
no,
going to
it's
see it.
true.
But
Well,
that's,
it's true. It is true though. So
yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
when you have cash laying around,
Mm-hmm.
it's easier to deploy
Yep.
than when you don't.
Yep. Yep. And holding costs and all
Yeah.
that shit. Just like, well, whatever, checks are coming in, we'll pay for it, right?
Yep.
That was not your position when you started, right? If
Mm-hmm.
anything, if you really evaluate it, well, we'll just go back to it. So you had this gas station you opened with your brothers, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Just tell me about that.
So yeah. So what do you call it? My brother bought a gas station in the downfall of like the economic recession in '08. They bought it. They ran it, but it didn't really make a lot of money. It just ran and operated. And then a few years in, like I was leaving my position at a hotel as a valet manager, and they're like, hey, did you want to come and join the family business and help improve and make a help eventually this will all be yours. Yeah, yours and your brother's. And I was like, okay, great, I'd love to come. So what we did was eventually we uh, saved up enough money to renovate the whole place. We actually tore it down, rebuilt it, increased the valuation, and I think at the peak it was probably worth around $7 million.
Dang.
We bought it for 1.4, 1.5, and then put in like another $800,000-900,000 into renovations, all with just financing it. A little bit of the money with the down payment, but understanding how to finance it was a big piece of it. And
Was
then
it SBA loan?
it was. So
You got an SBA loan at gas station, and then there's a moment where you're like, hey, I think that this business is not going to be a good long-term thing because electric cars, environment, all that shit. Where was the gas station at, by the way? Remind me, was it Eastern Washington?
yeah, I was in Tri-Cities. So it was like 3.5 hours away. It was very profitable, but at the end of the day, you're literally sacrificing your life for money. And I was like, after you have kids, your priorities change.
Mm-hmm.
Your time's worth a little bit more, and money isn't everything.
Right.
Did you guys end up selling it? I was adjusting the audio. So
He
I
still
missed
owns it, right?
Yeah, so I just asked my brother for a small buyout.
Oh,
for a
he bought
portion
you
of it.
out basically.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And it wasn't based on the evaluation of the business. You probably gave him a discount on it, right?
Yeah, I gave him pennies on the dollar.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because keep it in the family, don't want to get in a fight about it, and you had bigger, better plans anyways, right?
Yep. I mean, the agreement was like, hey, like as long as you kind of, it was all like family money that we used, mom and dad's money. So we're like, hey, as long as you take care of them, I don't really need to make a lot of money from this, and just walked away from it. Yep.
Yeah. So, and that was in what year?
That was I walked away in 2018.
Okay.
So that was about 10 years.
No, 2018 or 20.
2018 is when I left or got bought out from the business.
But
And
you were beginning to exit out of it much earlier than that, right?
kinda like it was,
We
it's kind
used
of
the income in your loans, and I remember that, but that went for a while. But you talked about the buyout for some time ahead of that.
yeah. I mean, I kind of realized like electric cars are starting to come in like what 2012, 2013. I was like, realistically, what is the real future of this? So can we do this 10 years, 20 years? I mean, we're at 10 years and like electric cars are what 20% of the business.
Yeah.
Give it another 10 more years, what is that going to be? 50%?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe less of that in Eastern Washington because of the location, but still, it was still gonna be a declining thing.
Yeah.
So let's talk about when you got your first property. What was your first property you bought?
So the first
Let's take a step back further. What made you decide to invest in real estate? What was the thing that kind of drove you into like, okay, I'm going to get out of this gas station business, or my long-term plans was what was the epiphany?
I've always wanted to get into real estate, but I randomly stumbled across Thatch.
Okay.
So everyone knows Thatch. Thatch went from Springboard to Wealth, and
Yep.
I watched one of his videos where he's like, I bought this apartment building for 400 grand, put $1 million into it, and now it's worth like 2 million, and now a cash flow is this amount. And I'm like, and he kind of goes into his backstory a little bit of it. So I was like, if he can do it, I can do it.
Mm-hmm.
And that was kind of the mentality. And you start wanting to just grow my real estate portfolio. I thought back then, 10 was going to be pretty much setting me up for life.
Which it kind of does.
Yeah.
It kind of does. We're way past that now.
Yeah.
Okay. So, and what year was that?
That was 2016.
Okay.
Yeah.
It wasn't that long ago.
Yeah.
So let's talk about your first deal you did. Like, what was the first deal you put together?
So the first deal, I was like, okay, just like everyone else, they're like, oh, let's go foreclosure auction and learn how to buy houses for cheap.
Okay.
Back then, there was a crazy amount of foreclosures going on. Not as many as 2012, 2011, but there was still a lot, probably like 10 or 15 a weekend.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I started going in, learning how to analyze deals, making sure that there's profit, there's a way to burr it out. There's a lot more investor-friendly loans that were happening then,
Mm-hmm.
and
I think there's more investor-friendly loans now. The rates are high.
well, back then I had a 0% down hard money loan
Yeah.
for a first-time investor, so it was
Oh,
pretty crazy.
Yeah.
There's no one that does that now.
Yeah. Yeah.
hmm
That makes sense. And so you bought your first one at auction.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then I remember walking.
You still have
in-
it now?
No, I sold that one and 1031'd it into another building
So what was the deal? Let's talk about what your first one looked like. This is good for people who are about to do their first deal. What does it? What would a first deal for you back then look like? And then in today's world, how you would have graded it based off of your price and equity and cash flow and all that stuff.
So back then, I bought this place at auction for like around 250 grand.
Okay.
I had an analysis for putting in $30,000 in renovations, and it should be worth 300 to 320.
Okay.
So back then, I thought, hey, like 10% down for a rental property is amazing. And
Well, relative that people are buying retail and putting 25% down.
exactly.
Right? You know, and at that price point, they should still have been cash flowing, right? Rates were still low, prices were low enough.
Yeah, absolutely.
So 10% down for a cash flowing rental in Pacific Northwest. And in today's world, that would have been great because that property today is worth what?
Probably 550, 6.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So if you still had it, you'd have way more than 50% loan to value on it, right? You'd probably be paid down to around like 180, 170. We were worth about 550, so you probably, you know, and you could have easily pulled your cash back out when rates were lower. If you just kept it, if you didn't do a 1031, you could have probably cashed out, lower your rate, and get the rest of your money you put into it back out like around 2021, right, when rates were the lowest, and then just sit it if you wanted to. Okay. I know you did a 1031 on it later on. I don't know the whole story to it. I just know about it afterwards. Somewhere in the middle of your acquisitions, you also put together like an owner financing deal. Do you still have that property?
No, I actually sold that one too.
Okay. Tell us how that deal got put together and how you kind of came up with the idea of doing that. Because I still have not done one of these. I ask when I see a property I like, but I've never actually put together an owner financing. So how did that one come together?
So that one was kind of forced onto me. Like I met up the owner. They were like, hey,
Well, how'd you see it? How did you even know about it?
I found this one on Zillow as a for sale by owner.
Okay.
So I called them and I'm like, hey, like I really like this area. The eventual plan was to tear it down and build a few houses for, you know, me, my family, and my wife's sister so that we can all kind of live right next to each other. And I came there and
Yeah, I
I
have
was
similar aspirations. They've never came together.
it's a lot harder to, you know, do all that and move everyone and do that.
Yeah.
Build it all out.
It's getting them to move with you is the hard
A
part.
lot of logistics.
Yes.
Yeah, but they said that they wanted to sell, and I was like, hey, maybe I can list your property. I think I can sell it for like 550 on the market. And they're like, no, we don't need the money now. We actually want to seller finance. And I'm like, are you sure? You would net more. And they're like, no, we'll actually sell it for a lower price, but we'll make the money on seller financing, and then it'll eventually come up to the price that we want. And I was like, wow, okay. So they came back. I looked it up as much as I could about seller financing, which
So you didn't come to the deal looking for seller financing. The seller said, "I only will sell it with seller financing."
yeah,
But
Were they just
there's
looking for like
that sounds
income
really
stream?
yeah,
Yeah.
because they're like, hey, look, we bought this house for nothing and we're paying taxes on it, so
yeah.
we don't want to pay taxes.
Now might sound like a bunch of dumb luck, but it did start with I saw it for sale, not with an agent on Zillow, and you actually picked up the phone and made the call.
Yeah,
So for people who have missed that, that is where luck is still a self-driven like prophecy, right?
For sure.
How many people are going on Zillow now looking for like make me moves and calling or contacting the owner directly for putting together a deal? I'll tell you right now, I haven't done that lately. So I mean that's just something you had the foresight to do, right?
yeah. I was looking for properties in the area, and it's always when you're looking for things is when you find them. If you're never looking, you will never find an opportunity. People say like, oh, houses aren't there, the opportunities aren't there. It's always because you're not looking. If you're looking for a red car and, like 9 yellow cars pass by that are way nicer, you'll never really notice them because you're only looking for a red car, or if you're even looking for a car
Ain't
at
that the
all.
truth?
Mhm.
I just found a great deal, and it's for I mean it's one of the reasons why I think it's so. I think it's really valuable being a professional in the real estate game because you end up looking at shit you weren't even trying to look at because you're looking at it for possibly other people.
Mhm.
I mean, so often the deals I see are like, I will show someone something, I'm like, well, what about this? And we start to dive into it. And at first, like, I think this might be a decent deal. And then I start realizing, like, hey, this thing's actually pretty sweet. And then the buyer might be like, oh, well, I'm not really, it doesn't fit me. And I'm like, well, shit, pass it around, maybe I'll buy it, right? But my first deal I bought was actually that way. I had a person
a former coworker who was like, yeah, I kind of want to get something in Alcon. Like I kind of wanted to, and this is right in the pandemic. And I was kind of coasting around while I was talking on the phone. I saw it. I kept my mouth shut. I'm like, ooh, I want that place. Now I don't do that with my clients send me the property.
Right.
I'll never do that. But I was kind of halfway looking for her. As a colleague in the industry. She was a loan officer and now was an agent. I was like, yeah, I kind of like the idea. We should just look. And I saw it and I'm like, this is it. This is exactly what I'm looking for. And she actually probably saw it, but I knew what my gameplay was, which was totally different than her. She just wanted to buy a house. I was like, mine has to be a condo play. And it was those 3 little houses on Beach, right off the Beach Drive.
Yeah.
And that was my first deal.
Yeah.
So tell us what that deal looked like. What was the property? What was it worth? Right? All that, and how much money did you have to put down? What did that look like?
So offered it, listed on the market for $550. They settled on a $475 purchase price with a $25,000 down. Bought it, and
so you're basically 5% down.
Yeah, 5% down. Very little fees because when you seller finance, you're not paying
appraisal and all
like
that shit.
all the little fees. And then I put in like another $10,000 in like new carpet and paint.
And what was it? Was it a house? It was a house in Kent, I think, right?
Renton. It was
Renton.
a Rambler in Renton.
Okay.
Did they own it free and clear? Do they
Yeah.
have a note on? Oh, they own it
Yeah.
free and clear.
Yeah.
Okay.
So nowadays you hear about all these sub twos, but there's
Yeah.
risks they can always deal with. But
Sure.
they owned it free and clear.
Yep.
Didn't have to pay
That
off
makes it easy.
anything, and it was pretty simple.
Just some ways to avoid the risk on the sub 2 deals,
Mhm.
but we'll get that's a topic of different.
They're just more
discussion.
complicated though than just doing it like that.
Yeah.
Because
This
I
was
mean that's
very
very
simple.
straightforward.
So
Yeah.
what you ended up selling that, but like let's just evaluate it. Back then it was worth about 550.
Mhm.
You paid 475, and today's numbers it would have been worth what?
Today's numbers would probably be worth like $750.
Okay. And what did it rent for?
I rented it for like $2,800 a month. So I profited like $300 after property tax and insurance.
So your $300 positive cash flow on the owner financing with only 5% down. What was the interest? What was the terms of the owner financing at the time?
It was a 4-year exact loan that had a prepay, so they wanted to guarantee their money that they got paid out, and like 5% interest rate. So I think the payment was like $1,875 plus.
Did you end up? I can't remember. Did we end up refinancing it, or did you just take it to the end of that term and then sell it before the balloon?
I ended up refinancing it.
I should know this because I probably did the loan.
When you do enough of them, they all kind of blur together.
Yeah. By the way, this for listeners to know, I always joke like I'm not the typical branch manager in the mortgage industry. I wish I could tell you I was a great trainee of new people who just want to do retail home loans, but I'm just not. Typically, I do better with people who kind of operate on a higher level. And the only 2 loan officers working my branch, which is Jason and Olga, are both former best customers, of the branch.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I did lots of loans for both of them, and they've been, instrumental in getting me off my ass to start buying shit, So that was that your second deal?
No, that was like my 10th or 11th property.
Yeah.
So let's circle back then,
Yeah.
because I am curious about how you began to accumulate more properties with low cash flow. Right?
So
Or did you have cash flow?
The gas station was definitely generating income. I remember qualifying them for the loan,
Mhm.
but it was not. It was still a tiny fraction of like the money that I was making when I first got into it.
Yep.
Right.
Were you just finding ways to do less money down? Were you like what? Did you have a strategy?
So I did start with around $100,000 to start investing, which I usually
Yeah.
tell is what the number is for most people to start buying real estate.
Yep.
But
But that's still not a lot.
It's
I
not.
mean, it doesn't go super far.
Mhm. So you will learn that very quickly as like when you're an agent, you save a little bit on your commissions and like coming up with a down. But when you have to figure out how to like finance it, right? So I think the first one I had a buddy that walked me into it and walked me through like you buy it hard money with like 10% down or 0% down in my situation, and you renovate it and then you refinance the loan and try and get out as much money as possible from your refinance and then do the process again. So it's called the Burr method.
Yep.
And you buy, renovate, rent, refinance, and then repeat.
So you did value add and a burr strategy on your first deal. It just
Mhm.
wasn't 100% burr. It was 10% in burr.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And
When
then
we
you
talk
just
about that-
keep doing, you just keep basically doing that over and over again. I mean,
Yeah.
and-
So
I mean, obviously different opportunities present themselves, like
Mm-hmm.
the owner financing that we just talked about. But
And then there's other things that we talked about in the other show, right? Like how to do burrs and have burfers
Yeah.
and trade ups and stuff like that. That's why you've people will say you should never. I mean, we talked about how those assets are all worth more today, but the reason why you were willing to let them go is because you weren't really selling, you were really trading, right?
yeah, you're
Yeah.
upgrading.
Mm-hmm.
yeah. So like as you start investing, if you don't make a crazy amount of income to offset the rental losses or so on or so forth, like getting to 2 or 3 is fairly easy. And then who you work with really matters. So like who your lender is. Like I had a previous lender and they didn't really walk me through what things I need to do. Keen would be like, hey, look, if you do your taxes a certain way, then we can qualify you for more. If you do it the other way, then you can do it, you don't get qualified. So I learned that the hard way, and from my I bought properties in 2016. I bought 3 or 4 of them, and then 2017 I bought one, or I bought two, and the lender that I was working with did not really walk me through it. They're just like, hey, look, we can do the loan, great, done. And then in 2017 I bought it, did the renovations, and then they're like, hey, we can't do the loan. You don't make enough money. And then I was like, okay, I need to start talking to other lenders because this is something that should have been
To do a refi, I mean, you couldn't
yeah,
do the
to
refi.
yeah, because hard money is pretty much if you have the down, they'll let you buy the house, right?
Yep.
Getting the takeout loan into a regular loan rate is what you want to get into because that's when you start cash flowing on the property and getting your money back out.
Yep.
So then I, talked to Keen. He definitely knew his stuff, and then I met with him. He walked me through how to do the next ones. I would actually, ask for 30 minutes an hour and be like, hey, like, what do I need to do? What do I need to plan for next year? How do I prevent these things from happening? Walk me through that. And then I went from owning like 3 to owning like 6 or 7 the next year, and then buying another 4 or 5 each year from there.
Yeah, and so if we went through that time cycle, I already kind of know the number, but as your loan officer back then, even though things have changed, I shouldn't really say it. But if you just gave a window of household income during that range for the listeners, so that way they can relate to where you're at from when you started, during this accumulation stage, before you became like just the beginning, going from the first rental to the first, to I don't know, maybe 5 to 10, that middle range, right, where you're kind of breaking 5 on your way to 10. Your income during that window of time was about how much? Personal income, not from the rents.
Like 80 to 100 grand a year.
800 grand a year, which in today's world would be tougher to do that.
Mhm.
But I would say that to get the equivalent of that in today's world with rates and price being higher, I think that a household income around 130 to 150
Yeah.
would be a very similar equivalent.
Yeah.
So that's the first lesson. How many people have I talked to in the last year who are like, oh, I'd love to start, but I don't make enough money.
Yeah.
And they're making in household income at least 130, 150. So what kind of sacrifices did you have to do to be able to make that happen? Well, one of them was you had to had to go on a limb and do value add right out of the gate, right?
Yeah.
That was one of them.
So a lot of them, the first couple that I did, like I did some of the work myself, like paying huge margins on that, like installing flooring.
I noticed that one of all the different labor things, the thing that seemed like it was not as hard to do, but it sells for a pretty high premium is paint.
Mhm.
Interior paint job, a full size house, $15,000-$20,000. Exterior, $15,000-$30,000 depending on the size of the house. My brother's got a power sprayer. Like I can't quite figure out why it's.
Well, the exterior sucks, and the interior sucks too. That's why people don't want to do it.
It's the prep.
I painted the whole interior of my very first house that I bought in
Okay.
Kansas.
Yeah.
It was fucking terrible, but I mean it's just work, like I painted all the trim too. Okay, so that was the part that really
It's all the
sucked.
prep work and the detail stuff.
Yeah, you just got to do a good job.
Yeah,
if you're
the
gonna
prep work.
if you're gonna do it, it just can't be. It doesn't have to be perfect, but if it's bad, it's bad.
Yeah. Well,
You
not only
know?
that, like if you mess up, it costs
Yeah.
a lot more to fix it
Yeah,
than it does
for
to
sure.
do it the right
Are-
way.
Yeah, are most of your properties here, like in Washington?
All of my properties are in Washington.
Okay.
hmm
Did you do that intentionally? You just like to have them around, or
I like to invest in real estate for one, like you know the area, right?
Yeah.
So like you can go into other country or states and quote unquote cash flow more, but like if you know the areas, it's kind of like insider trading. If you're in real estate, you know the market, you know where the jobs are, where people want to buy, like where the money's at. Like those are all areas it's where people want to go. It's like going into Wall Street and saying like everyone wants to buy this stock before it goes up on the market or whatever. Like you're all hearing about it. You know what people want. Like you are probably going to buy those ones, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we talked about in another episode. There's a hack into investing in your local market because people don't give themselves enough credit that they are already kind of experts in their respective spaces, right? And that you brought up a good point that for the stock market, the closest thing that someone could have without trying to be like a professional investor is if they have stock options for the company they're working at, because they know things that would normally be considered insider trading, and they know really well what their company is doing. So they know if they're crushing their marketplace and that there's no way their competition is going to get close to catching up to them because the stuff they're working on and other people don't know it and it's confidential. They can be given stock options from that company. Like maybe it's what Amazon was going through their grow up, right? You know, they're glowing up or whatever.
Yeah.
And people were getting the stock options working there and they're like, this thing is just beginning, and they hold on to it and the stock keeps going up and they make a ton of money on it. It's like that insider information that Jason was referencing. You know, we could talk about a specific city and neighborhood for 5 hours and other people can listen to us and still they wouldn't be able to operate the same way we would knowing it, like in our DNA.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm curious. One thing I was just thinking about that I think would be interesting because I'm curious about it, but it's something that we haven't really exactly done before. And you can sort of back of the napkin do the math, but you know, from going from 0 to 5, like, can we go through those transactions just sort of so like, you know, I put 20K down the first house, then I put 20K into it, then I was able to refi and pull out this much. Does that make sense? I think that would be, we've never done that before.
Yeah.
I think that would be kind of interesting because there's an understanding of how the math works, but then there's like how it actually works when you're doing it. That I think would be kind of fun,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And I think about my first deals, and when I tell people what I did, it still screams rich guy. You know, there's a value add piece pulling my money out, right? But it's like they were all development plays, rates were really low, right? So I think Jason's story on them are really valuable for a lot of
And there's
people.
also just less risk for you, right? Because you had a steady cash flow, right?
Yeah.
So if you made a mistake, you definitely don't want to make a mistake, but you had coverage.
Yeah.
You know, because you were gonna sort of fill your cup right back up.
Right.
You know, quickly. You know. So okay, let's do that. So that first deal, that foreclosure, and again, the ballpark numbers are obviously great. Do you remember what you had to put down on that?
I had to pay a like $7,000 loan fee for that. Or let's just round up to 10, right? So I pretty much put $10,000 down. I actually got a construction loan for $30,000 on top of that.
Yep.
And then I put about like $20,000 into construction.
Okay. So 20 of that 30 you used basically.
Correct. Right.
Yeah.
And then once I got it all done and fixed up, I pulled out the full 30.
What'd you buy it for? Do you remember what the purchase price was?
$250.
All right, that's right, 250. Okay.
Right.
So 250, you put 30 in, and then it was worth like what, 320?
Yeah.
Ish.
You know, like 330.
Okay,
I think it was
330.
the number.
Yep.
And then I refinanced out at I remember I had to bring in like 10 or 15 grand to closing to make the loan numbers work. So essentially I was all in at 15 grand for the whole property, something like that.
And what were you able to pull out?
So since I did a construction loan, it actually rolled into the existing loan. So the 50 plus the plus 30. So I owed 280 and I refinanced out at like a 265 grand loan or something like that.
Yeah, and for today's world, I would say for people who are listening to this, if you buy a value add deal, not at auction, and you're a first time investor, it's going to depend on the deal, but you usually can get financing between 80 to 85% of your purchase price plus construction work is what most I hear lenders offering for first time investors. So if whatever you're buying the property for, plus whatever the rehab's going to be, as long as the value's there, you could get into it for as little as 15% of the sum of those two. So it wasn't quite as aggressive as what you were offered back then for hard money.
Yeah, that's because the real estate market at the time was going
Yep.
crazy up.
So you're all in 45K.
Mhm.
Are you, and you're renting the place out?
I did find a renter, so you do need to rent it out before you can refinance.
Okay.
Yep. Then we use the rent income to help you qualify for the takeout loan.
And then,
I was actually only 15 grand in because I got cash back out of that 30 grand of the 45 that I put in total. So
oh, you got 15K back.
I got 30 grand back of the 45.
Got it. Okay, so you're 15K in at that. After you refi, you're
Mhm.
15K in.
Yeah.
Okay.
So when we talk about BRRRRs, a common terminology in our space is this is a version of a BRRRR deal, right? But when we say 100% BRRRR, that means it's where you got all of your money from it back out. And so this is not quite 100% BRRRR. It ends up being a 5% BRRRR.
Yep.
Yep. Okay. And then, do you remember what the second property that you bought was?
So right after I got that, well, just to give you guys notice or experience, the very first property I bought, I was like, oh, this is gonna be great. I walked in the front door, and I was like, oh my god, like what did I get myself into?
Yeah.
This is like a crazy amount of work. It's super gloomy, and all I did was like paint and carpet,
Yep.
and it literally changed the entire thing. It was super easy.
Yep.
Like, so paint carpet and a new roof, and yeah, I would say the very first one is very intimidating, and afterwards it gets a lot easier, or a little bit easier, just like walking. The first time you take a few steps, hard.
Well, it's less scary the second time.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and then each progressive time just gets better and better, or easier and easier.
Yep. How long do you think it was from like when you from buy, purchase to refi?
The people that were in the home were in there for about 1 or 2 months, and then it took me about 30 days to renovate, and then like 30 days to find a tenant, and then I refinanced during the time I was finding a tenant, so about 4 months. 3
Okay.
months. Yeah.
That's pretty good. Yep. All right. So you're 15K in, then you're like, are you just immediately like, let's go do this again?
Yep. So I just went back to the auction. The thing about the auction is like it's an auction. So like you're not going to buy a property every single week.
Right.
So I'd prep to buy 35 properties a week, deal analysis that,
Yeah.
and then buy one every like 4 months.
Did you ever flip any of them?
Got it.
I did. I actually bought the first two condos that I bought were at the foreclosure too, and condos are not very good long-term investments. So I always tell everyone that, but no one believes me until they keep it as a rental for a few years.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. So you basically just rinsed and repeated
And you go,
several
oh,
times.
Exactly.
And you just used kind of, let's say that 100K maybe that you had saved up or that you had available to you.
That was good for probably 2 or 3.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think I did 3, and I was running down on funds. So eventually, like I was like, hey, great, 10% down on these. I can probably do like 4 or 5, and then
Can't remember. Did you have a primary?
I did.
Okay.
So.
Would you have house hacked earlier?
Yes.
To get into it? Yeah.
100%.
Yeah,
Like
I
I
feel
would
the
have
same way.
house hacked.
Yeah.
I literally tell every single person, like, I regret not house hacking my very first one. And like no one really wants to, sacrifice that first year of not living in a nice place.
Yep.
But it would have knocked down 2 notches, and if they did that, they would like be cash flowing pretty well once they're paid off.
And it ain't that big a deal.
Yeah.
1 year.
Mm-hmm.
You think it's going to be forever when you're doing it. And then it's over and you're like, that wasn't too bad.
Yeah. No
and
question.
then you got 2. Then you're on a roll. I wish I did that too. I didn't even know about it. I should have done it.
Yeah.
Because my first house was just a regular old house, in Kansas.
Yeah, in Kansas.
Man, we could. And the funny thing is, man, there's all kinds of opportunities where I lived to do that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Because it was like it's a college town, so there's duplexes for sure, triplexes all over the place. Because that's just, what you're putting students in, what you're,
Yeah.
putting faculty in, all that kind of stuff. There was a whole bunch of opportunities.
This is a little bit of an average. Like a lot of people who do my line of work are not investors. I think a lot of them make enough money they just don't bother doing it because they try to do the digital, which I try to play that path, and me, my business coach was trying to get me to do that only. But there's a truth about being a mortgage lender that, in general, can make you a very successful investor if you focus on it in both either the stock market or in real estate, which is it's not uncommon, not in every correction. Obviously, the one we're going through now, because it's related to inflation, rates are high. But if it's not an inflation-related correction, if it's just a correction, which majority of the ones that you'll see are not based off of inflation, right?
Mm-hmm.
In my lifetime, it was primarily two. Like when I was too little to remember, I was born in 1978, and it was going on then, and it peaked in 1981, and then right now, right? All the other corrections, dot-com boom, 9/11, housing recession, right? All that stuff, COVID. This is just an advertising. People want to get into the investment space and want to be doing a profession in this line of work. There's moments where there's corrections in the stock market and in real estate, and our income goes up because rates drop and people need loans. So you haven't experienced that yet because this is first correction as a lender, Jason. But all the other ones, right? You get this surge of income. Now, I just know my colleagues, most of them just buy stupid shit, right? And that included me in the past too. But if you look at it and be like, oh man, when everyone else can't even buy, like we're experiencing what most people feel like right now because our rates are high, so our incomes are down, right? What we're experiencing now is actually what most people experience in most corrections, and we're eating, right? So maybe 3 or 4, maybe 1 out of every 3 or 4 corrections, we're not on the right side of that fence. But all the other ones, I'd say at least 60, if not 80% of the time, there's some kind of market correction. We're literally like gravy train when everyone else is like, oh, I don't want to spend anything. And so our opportunity to do acquisitions, both in the stock market and in real estate, surge when other people are retracting. Because when the market corrects and rates drop, people buy, people refinance, and our income goes up. So, which is why when I think about it's easy to look back in time and say, oh, coulda, woulda, shoulda on opportunities. I think they're more, I won't say that they're more painful for me than everyone else because I don't really know what it's like to be in other people's shoes. But for me personally, it is really painful to think about those opportunities because I was eating then. I'm like, dude, this is when I went from 200 to 500. What did I have to show for it? I bought a house, right?
Yeah.
I'm like, come on. Could have just, listen to all the shit that Jason was doing, making 80 to 100 grand a year or whatever, right? I was eating, just so focused on doing my job that I just shooting right by, right? But if you came into this line of work conscientious of that up front, right? And you get these surges of income, there's the real opportunities in the space that we're in, you know what I mean? Because Jason's now, because he's working as a loan officer now with us, right? So next phase, you get 5 rentals, 10 rentals. Like, what was the next level up for you?
The next level up was once you get past 10 rentals. Well, it's 10 per person. So if you that was just me making 80 to 100. My wife also made like 80 to 100 as well. So I didn't do all of them under my name. I did some under mine, some under hers, and then eventually, we're just working up to getting to our 20. That was the number. Mm-hmm.
Right.
But once you, I was having a conversation with Keen because, Keen was my lender and a real good friend. And he's like, I'm going to be real. If you want to get past 20, you need to make more money.
Yeah.
It's like, you're not going to get there. You'll get there very slowly. And I was like, oh, that's real talk.
Yeah.
So.
So when you got to 5 though, when you sort of were maxed out with what you had, how did you get to 10?
You start using the equity in your properties because properties always appreciate.
Yeah.
So eventually you just pull out the money and you have a lot more money to deal with, and then you start working on burning it out again and again and again.
Right.
you're
So
just
by that
recycling.
time you could sort of refi out,
Mm-hmm.
grab a little bit more out from your first or second
Mhm.
property and just sort of do it all over again.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, it's really just an increase of doors, locations, cash flow, whether you're using equity in existing properties or trading.
Yep.
Trading
And
up.
then why is it hard to get over 20?
So when you're doing residential loans, right? There's some conforming products out there that allow you to go over 20, but the guidelines are different. The prices are more expensive, give or take. But the kind of cream of the crop loans that you hope to get for most of your single family type rentals are the ones backed by Fannie and Freddie, and they say you can only have 10 properties financed. And so if you're married, it's kind of like you get one, I get one,
Right.
you get one, I get one, right? And so getting to that 20, it's funny because I hear new lenders today and they'll talk about on their social media like, oh, this is a tactic, like you guys should have done this early. I'm like, I've been telling people to do that shit for decades. I heard someone else, and nothing against them, good for them, right? I'll hear some other people who are in our space who are lenders and investors, doing talks and telling people to do one for me and one for the spouse and whatever. Because think about it ahead of time. Don't try to cap yourself early. Not that it's not good advice, but I've been saying that shit for years, just like the house hack stuff. And so it just seemed obvious to me. There are some and here's the other thing I would say, and I realize this too, right? If there are products that allow you to go more than 20 and they shelter you from counting towards your 20 because they let you put it in an LLC and the LLC is on the note too, don't be afraid to take some of those before you get to 20. That way you can still use some of those Fannie Freddie products to build beyond that. Because look, me and Diane have more than 20 rentals, and we still have 2 or 3 that we could add to our name. And the one that we just bought, which is still in a commercial loan, we converted to 4 units. But the reverse exchange that we're doing is going to move 2 off of our list. So 2 is coming off, and then 4 are coming on. So it's only going to eat up 2 spots of the remaining 5, 6 we have trading up, right? But yes, you don't have to. Everything you buy doesn't have to be a burr. There is like once you start to build up some assets, options open up, right? You can start to do trade ups and
And
do some other stuff.
you bought each of the properties just in either your or your wife's name.
Yeah.
If it's a
basically?
single family type
Mhm.
thing, yeah. Now you moved on to bigger things, right?
Yeah.
So let's talk about well, your first development play, was it the one I sent you? Was that your first development play?
Yeah, that was actually. Went to King County. We're talking about the whole condo conversion now, like older structures, and then we're like, hey, there's a great condo conversion. I actually went to King County,
And they're like, you could subdivide it.
yeah, they're like, you can subdivide this, and I was like, what?
So you just put in a short plat subdivision,
Mhm.
and is it done now?
Yeah, so that took about a year, and then I refinanced it again, and then I think I refinanced it again after that too. I refinanced properties like left and right, people.
Yeah.
But yeah, like pretty much, I actually got paid like 100 grand to buy that property.
You
And-
took out more money than you put into it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've done that too.
Yeah, I put in like 120 to buy it, and then renovated like 10 grand each unit, and then
I've only done that twice, but I've done that 2 different times where
Mhm.
the money I took out of it. And if I look back, I'm like, I probably would have used some of that money to reinvest back into the property a little better.
Mhm.
But I think we all just have to mature as investors. Like we can look back and I'm sure if you went through every single one of your deals, even if you bought the exact same ones, how you would have done them now versus back then would be different.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
What I know now is worth way more than like the best deal that ever got way back in the day.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
And you, at the end of the day, you can do all the research you want, but the real knowledge is it's, I mean, I think they talked about it in the Slide Edge, right? There's really like 2 ways of learning. There's the learned knowledge and applied knowledge, and you have to climb that knowledge ladder, left hand, right hand, left foot, right foot. We have to learn, right?
Mhm.
Book knowledge, then apply knowledge, then go back and forth.
Yep.
You can't spend all of your time in the lab designing your business plan, which is why it's so important that you work with people who are actually doing the thing that you want to do, so that applied knowledge can be coached and you can climb that ladder that way, right? And I think you guys be just excited to climb that ladder. I think it's part of the process. Like if you're not excited to change who you are, and change what you know and change the way you see things, then you're not going to be successful in the space. You have to be someone who's excited for that.
Mhm.
That's actually the things that get me the most excited is when I could see as clear as day, right? The thing that I know I'm going to have to do that will get me to that next level, and knowing other people ain't going to do that shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
Well, I think the hardest part for most people is like most people know that things are a deal. They just don't know how to do it, right? And I think the biggest change in my business was like 1, asking for help, but also 2, asking for help from people that know more than you.
Hmm.
So like at that time, like Keen, I'd ask Keen, and like that's how I went from 1 or 2, 3 a year to like now what, like I think I'm working on acquiring 22 doors in the next like 4 months, 3 months. So it scales very quickly, but it goes from learning from the best, asking people, and like not stopping until you find out what you want to know.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Chris, you ready to buy your first Washington deal?
Phoenix first.
Phoenix first. That's all right. Phoenix is good. Phoenix is good.
I want to have a place to go.
Yeah.
I want to have a place to go.
Yeah.
It's not. I know it's not the best. I know it's not the smartest play, like just from a let's make money standpoint.
Yeah.
But man, it would be nice to have a place to go.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
That's how most people feel about their primary, though.
fuck that primary stuff. But the primary's here, man, where it's cloudy and
Yeah.
cold.
Yeah. I get it.
Like the haven't,
Chris has been anti-primary residence this whole time we started the show.
I'm pretty anti-primary residence, but for me, I also have just a very unique situation, right? So we have a blended family. Every other weekend, we don't have any kids. So for me to have a place that we can get on a plane like Friday in the morning and come back on Sunday night, and it's warm and sunny and easy to get to, like that is a huge value add to our life.
Is Phoenix like out of all places would be your first choice?
Phoenix checks boxes for other reasons too. My brother lives there.
Yeah.
Brooke's dad lives there, and
Easy
I've
access,
spent
flights are
time
cheap.
there, so like I know the city,
Mhm.
and I like what it has to offer, So those are kind of some additional reasons why, but
Yeah, I'm too predictable. For me, I just am a city guy. For me, it's LA and Miami. If you said if money's no issue, and you could buy two sunny, second homes,
yeah,
I would say LA and Miami, and I'd say Miami first. But LA is way more accessible, but
yes,
it's super expensive.
yeah. But like LA though, I don't like the traffic. It's like
When we go, we usually put ourselves like right into like West Hollywood,
yeah, you just chill in this one.
and then we're going between there and Beverly
Spot.
Hills.
Yeah.
And it's like restaurants, bars,
Yeah.
shopping,
Yeah.
People get these weird matcha tea lattes there. I don't know what the appeal is. And what's the appeal of matcha tea lattes, LA? I don't know
It's
what.
just a vibe, man. That's what it is.
Yeah. I mean, I don't
just a
think
new
it's making you skinnier,
No, I don't think so.
It's just a new craze, changes all the time.
Yeah. But and I like Miami a lot. There's just like lots of culture. It's a melting pot. And, it seems like it's a real up and coming city. I mean, it's kind of going into the ocean too, so I'm not sure what owning there is such a good idea. But but it's just got a cool vibe to it.
Oh yeah, culturally Miami is super cool.
Yeah.
Phoenix is
A little more sleepy.
Yeah.
Not too sleepy though, but more sleepy.
yeah, but it's like right. So we went to Palm Springs like 2 weeks ago. That place is sleepy,
Super sleepy.
Yeah.
But like at least Phoenix, like there's things to do. There's
Mhm.
concerts. There's
My best
sports
friend lives
teams,
there,
There's
Yeah.
there's stuff that you can do, and so that's why we're kind of leaning. If I just could go buy something, I probably would go buy something in Cabo, but the price point is much higher. You have to figure out how to purchase a property in Mexico,
Yeah.
which is not hard, but it's just different.
Jason, is that ever going to be on your list? Like, I want a second home, maybe 1031 to do like some kind of Airbnb in a sunny place where you can use it and get cash flow also.
Yeah, I've definitely been thinking like LA, San Diego, New York.
Maybe
Yeah.
we should do one.
Here's the other thing too here's the other thing that's appealing about Phoenix. The state of Arizona's Airbnb rules are really good. So their state law basically prohibits you from limiting, like cities, municipalities from limiting Airbnbs.
Like Florida's
Only
similar.
HOAs can do it. So
Yeah.
there's a ton of developments that have no HOA. So if you can buy the house, the chances of something really changing are really
It's a mixed
tiny.
bag though. If the area does have HOA restrictions, you always have the chance of inventory, saturating your market.
You do, but there's not for me though, the risk is that it just goes away.
Yeah.
right? Because like in my mind, I would try to create something that is marketable anyway, that is appealing or different something, right? It's not just going to be like a house
Totally.
because it's a place that we want to go visit and have fun at anyway. So we'll make it fun for us and hopefully it will be, interesting for other people.
Yeah.
But like Palm Springs, I looked at for a hot second. It's like none. You can't. It's like pretty much impossible.
Yeah.
LA, I don't know about LA.
I'm pretty sure they have restrictions. I haven't looked,
Yeah,
but
almost every place does now. Like I was looking at Dallas for a little while. Same thing.
They just
really
started doing
really
them.
hard.
Yeah.
Really really hard. And the hard thing about that situation is, man, those cities they can just change the rules like today.
Yeah, and there's a climate to where you can see it. I think it's
Yep.
typically more red states typically are a little bit more lenient on it, and the blue states are a little bit more strict about it.
Yeah, well, and I think too is the higher the price point that you go, the harder it is.
Which is funny
know?
because they're not necessarily going to be the best,
Yeah.
Airbnb markets
And where
anyways.
where it's less transitory, like your people hate it more.
Mm-hmm.
Palm Springs is you have a lot of snowbirds, but it's a lot of old people, so they're just grumpy. Like they don't want people hanging. You know what I'm saying? Like
There's a lot of old people in
they don't
Phoenix
want
too,
people
though.
hanging out. There are, but Phoenix is much bigger.
Yeah.
So they're it's urban, so there's like a more of a sort of a city vibe. You don't
Yeah.
expect it to be quiet and tranquil all the time,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
that was one of the other appealing things about Phoenix was finding out that those rules are not likely to change anytime soon.
Mm-hmm.
Like municipalities are literally not allowed to limit short-term rentals.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
We'll
Very
see.
Interesting.
I'm looking.
I think I'll eventually have a place in Phoenix.
Yeah.
I think that long term, I've always had a goal of having at least one property that's near Mayo Clinic.
Okay. Yeah.
And that limits you to Minnesota, Arizona, and Florida. And although I would like very much to get a place in Florida, it's not for them. It's Orlando, and for me, Orlando is all about Disney World right now. So I don't really vibe it yet.
Yeah.
Maybe I'd see it differently later on. But I can say one thing. I remember when you used to be able to buy a house in Orlando for like 50 grand, and I'm like,
Nice.
remember when that was a thing? That was a thing. Arizona, Florida,
Yeah.
Nevada.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yep.
Las Vegas and Phoenix for sure. You could buy stuff for super cheap.
Yeah.
You guys do have me thinking about though my strategy, buying something that is a little more needs a little bit of work and
Yeah,
put a
but
little bit of work into it.
Well, I've been trying to tell you, man. Like, yes, there's perceived risk because like cost overbids, overruns, whatever. How good does the margin look? But you got your boys right here, contractors, deal evaluation, that whole nine, right?
Yeah. I think too. It's just I think also
I don't got contacts to remodel your shit in Arizona.
yeah, but I could probably I do I think
I got
Yes.
I got
definitely do,
contacts
dude.
for you.
yeah
My
because
point is
you
that you have a lot of contacts.
just the idea though of finding something that's a little uglier,
Oh, yeah.
and because if you got a pool, furniture and some plants can make shit look like really nice, like pretty quickly. You
Yeah.
put a little like credenza up or whatever, and it can make a big difference. So
Yeah, one thing I've learned is that whatever you think is going to be the best outcome, it'll get tweaked anyways. Just make sure that
Yeah.
the macro numbers work well. Like for instance, like the SeaTac deal, Jason partnered with me on it, and the first remodel we did it pretty nice, right? That place only rents maybe 25% more than the space below it that has like no windows, dark, dingy,
Right.
not remodeled at all. So it's okay because we also use like a second home. It's nice to have one space that's nicer. But when we got to renovating, once we realized we need to really put a ceiling on how nice we're going to make. Like when it comes time to remodeling the spaces, don't go nuts with the rest of them
Yeah.
because it just doesn't change the numbers much. Where, when we did one in Alki, we're like, okay, well, there's other competition in this space and maybe they all do well anyways, but the income can really move up, if you get your place booked full in the summer. So we can maybe spend a little more making the place nicer. And it paid, first year running in as a summer Airbnb, the numbers we got were great,
for those though, what would you spend on that you wouldn't spend on the other one? Finishes or
Yeah.
like furniture or
Finishes for sure. Like,
Yeah.
so like the SeaTac one, there's like this waterfront house that lives kind of like a house with a mother-in-law apartment in the basement. So we rent them as separate units. The basement one is a non-conforming one bedroom, right? And it's kind of dark and dingy. It's still lakefront.
Yep.
But original kitchen, dated stuff, white appliances, the only thing new in there is paint, drywall, and flooring.
Yeah.
And the flooring is not in the flooring. Yeah, that's pretty much it. The kitchen's still old, bathroom's old. Other than the flooring, I bought like a used vanity from, what was it, the Habitat store, um, and that place on average rents for around like $90 a night, and then the upstairs one, slightly bigger, fully renovated, kitchen, bathroom, the whole nine. Nothing was, everything was new, and that will run on average about 125 a night, and they both get like about a 20% kicker in the summer.
Yeah.
Nothing crazy. The Alki one gets very similar numbers in off season as the Angle Lake place, but when summer hits, I remember using the Price Labs, and it was pricing out like my per night stay in Alki, and I saw how much he wanted to try to get for July. I'm like, get the fuck out of here! You're not going to get almost $400 a night. And guess what? 100% full in July. Made almost $7,000.
Wow.
And with almost no review history
Yep.
either.
Yeah.
Right. And it's a small place, cute but small, right?
Do you think it's those finishes that contribute to that?
I think it helps. I think that as more people enter that space, there's a lot of old people who live in Alki. So as more people acquire properties there, and there's more ADU rules to be able to add extra units, there's going to be more competition coming on. So you want to have some competition in it for sure. And if someone's going to spend that kind of money, I think the key is that if you're going to be able to charge a premium on a per night stay, and that premium's only because of location, then you can get some revenue drops in the future if more competition comes on. Seattle has some strict Airbnb rules, so it's not like you can have a ton of competition, but Alki is a known Airbnb market. So as properties turn over and more people let them go, the people I bought mine from, they never operated Airbnbs there. They just had his multifamilies. So I just turning one to an Airbnb and getting the extra income. I think more people just do kind of what I did, and so you want to make sure your place has, just stands out as a cute different place.
Yeah. I just want my place to be nice anyway.
Yeah.
Something like that, like
If you're going to use it.
Yeah. Well, and if it's going to be like a spot like that, if it's just a regular old house, like a rental, that's fine. People are just going to live there. You know, I mean, you know what I'm saying? But if it's supposed to be an experience, like I just would want it to be nice,
it's a fun part
nicer,
of building a bit.
Like
it's the part I've always loved about that part of the business. Yes, the management. I don't think Jason's him swipe like as much as I do, but I like this idea that like all the experience I get that's related to the value and the revenue I earned is based off of how unique of a place I make it.
Yeah.
That's why it's sad that I'm letting go of that Juanita Drive place, because the whole, we spent so much money trying to make it look like this experience. Obviously, we're trading it to a better asset.
Yep.
But for that short run that we ran it as an Airbnb, waiting for the spring market to come, it did fill really fast.
Yeah.
So obviously it would have paid off long term, but trade up on bigger, better things.
Right.
That's that's the brutal part about real estate investing, to do it proper. You can't get too attached to anything that you have, because you didn't have anything until you started investing. And to get the next bigger, better one, you sometimes have to trade out of things that you have. Even if there's, even if what you have, there's no signs that you should sell it, you should always make sure that you're ready to move something like that, because the real answer people evaluate what they have too often as, what is this going to do for me now to forever, versus like, what could that money do for me now to forever? And in a narrow scope, that property can keep appreciating, cash flow keep appreciating. You could have burned it, got all of your money back out, and why would you ever sell it? Well, if you don't have $2 million capital just sitting in the bank ready to go do another deployment, and you can find a property that you can buy for $500,000 and make it worth $3 million, right? Then you might have to sell something to acquire that property. And the property you have, it's going to keep going up in value forever, but it doesn't have any more forced appreciation. You've already maxed it out. So moving money from a property that has been forced to its max value, and now it's just riding the market for growth, sometimes it makes sense to sell it, to shift that money to another one where not only will it have its own time growth, but it has this room for substantial forced appreciation and forced rent increases, right?
Yeah.
And so you just have to take those, sometimes you just have to trade to maximize your opportunities. So what advice would you give to newer people in this space? Like, what is, top 1-2 things you would say to someone who is thinking about getting into investing that would make all the difference for them?
Get a mentor is one, is like find out people that have been doing it or have a really good real estate portfolio, and just ask to learn from them. And 2 is have a really good team of like real estate agents co-investors, lenders, like hard money lenders, commercial lenders. Like there's a lot out there, but literally just working with the best. And like people always want to have someone that's cheaper, but the cheaper people aren't cheap for a reason.
Right.
Like like I talked to Chris, and like I talked to a fair amount of attorneys, and Chris gave me, like, within 5 minutes I knew Chris was way better than a lot of the other attorneys I've ever talked to. I was like, what? And I've paid money to talk to other lawyers, and then like, thankfully Chris is really good friends with Keen, and I talked to him on passing, and I'm like, wow, Chris knows his stuff.
Yeah.
Like, Keen knows his stuff. It literally pays to work with the best.
Let me add something to what you just said, and this is a really important piece of it, because I think this is just in your DNA, so you don't even think about it. Some people don't always have good people to talk to, so yes, find good people to talk to. But don't spend time evaluating the deal when you're too new, because you don't even know what the fuck you're looking at. You should be surrounding yourself with good people who are discerning, who would have no problem telling you that's a bad buy, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when they say you should buy this one, you should stop fucking thinking and just do it. You spent time, you should be evaluating the mentor, not the deal, when you're new. Because when you're new, you don't know what you're looking at, right? You think you know what you're looking at, but you don't know what you're looking at. And I'm not saying you should go into it completely blind, but you don't really know what you're looking at. And so if the person you're looking at knows what they're doing and they say you should buy it, just take that leap of faith. The evaluation time you're supposed to be spending isn't on that deal, it's on the mentor. The mentor should be, no, don't buy that. Now I wouldn't buy that. And when they first say, I would buy that one, and you have the capability of taking it down, just fucking do it. If you spend a bunch of time trying to analyze it afterwards, well, let me see why. Figure that out afterwards. They know what they're doing.
Yeah.
That was actually Moose's first deal. We had Moose on the show. It literally went like this. He had been talking to Thatch, right? And he showed the deal to Thatch and goes, what do you think of it? And he's like, I like the deal. And if you don't buy it, I'll buy it. And Moose was like, well, fuck that shit. I'm buying it. Right? But that's my point. It's like, well, you have the right person saying you should buy it. Just do it. If you're going to spend a bunch of time analyzing whether or not you think the mentor is right or wrong, why did you even pick that mentor then?
Yeah.
Right? I have if you're working with me or you're working with Jason trying to put together a deal and you ask me whether I would buy the thing that you're looking at or give it an A through F grade, I'll be honest with you about it. Right? I'll be 100% honest with you about it. And usually it's, I don't love it, right? I say that a lot, right? But, if I say this is a good one, you should just do it. That means at some stage of my investing career, I probably would have done it myself, right? Now, some people ask, like, well, why wouldn't you do this deal now? I think that as investors, we all kind of graduate, right? Like I just got done evaluating the whole, that whole Bellingham deal that I've been passing around. I thought, hey, maybe I should even try to pull it. When I got done of doing the evaluation, I'm like, okay, I could make this 100% BRRRR and have an alley lot to develop in the future and have 4,000 net cash flow as Airbnbs after 100% BRRRR with 300 grand in equity. That sounds like a pretty good deal, right? But the work I'll put into this would be the same as converting 4 of my existing regular rentals into Airbnbs in good Airbnb markets, and I already own the shit.
Yeah.
In places where I have a team and I've already acquired them on cheap financing. So why would I go buy something on expensive financing to create 4 new Airbnbs in a market that I'm not in? It doesn't make any sense. So the easy answer is why don't I do it? Because I could just do the same shit to stuff I already own, get the same value add, get the same cash flow, and not take as much risk or have to take on the extra work of establish a team somewhere else. But what a great deal for someone else's first deal.
Yeah,
Right.
Actually, I got introduced to like an electrician. I was like, oh, great. Like, can you quote me out? And he's like, oh, like I see you doing a lot of projects, and can you like let me know if you find anything? I actually found a deal that day, and I'm like, hey, this is like a really good opportunity in Olympia. Like the numbers, I buy it for like 350, renovate it for like 150, and you can sell both of them for like 350 and 400. So essentially probably make like 150 grand. I was like, that's great. I don't want to drive to Olympia. It's not worth my time. And most people would say like, oh, you're not interested in it. Like, what's the catch? And I'm like, it's too far for me. Not worth my time.
I could literally show you how the same amount of time I spend on something I already have or could acquire will make me more. It's just that we graduate as investors to a different level. Like the perfect deal for someone to start off in is not going to be the perfect deal for someone who's been doing it for a while. That's just the truth. I think that moving forward, I'm not going to get that. I think for me to get excited about a deal, I probably have to make at least like, if even I wanted to make a little bit less than a normal benchmark, probably somewhere around 600 to 800 grand in equity value bump is probably enough to get me go, okay, like, I really like it, right? But if it's like under 5, And it sounds like I'm being really picky, but it's like the work's the same,
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to sell something I have to buy something, because with rates being higher, I think the trading strategy is a big part of what a lot of the deals we get done today, trading equity you have into another deal, because it's hard to burr things when values are high and rates are high. So if I have to trade into something, I want the value add to be big, preferably $1 million plus. I think is kind of what I really want. But if it's a location's really good, let's say it's like an Alki deal and I could make 600-700 grand on it, I might do it just because of familiarity with the marketplace and my contractor's local. But I'm still kind of talking myself into it, right? I'm still kind of talking myself into it. And that's such a great opportunity for people who are newer, because all the stuff that we pass on ends up being the perfect deal for them, right?
Yeah. Well, that guy, he sold the little house for 400, and he should probably sell the big one for like 550.
So he's going to do really well.
So he's doing like 300, and that's just because I didn't want to do it. I literally walked him through the whole
and
thing.
that will change his life.
Yeah.
Right? And for you, it would be like just another project that may have not been the biggest return of all the different projects you could have done. Right?
Yeah. Especially for the time that I would have put into it. I was like, not worth it for me.
Yeah. That's how I came to that same conclusion on that Bellingham one. So.
All right. That's a good place to wrap.
Yeah.
I think on that little monologue, but I think that the advice that both of you guys have is super helpful because I'm new.
Yeah.
So I'm just sitting here like, well, you guys just keep talking. I'm just keep listening. So Jason, thanks for joining us. As always, if you guys like the show, like, comment, follow, do whatever you can do. If you guys need help, reach out to these guys. Obviously, they know what they're doing. And that's it for today. So I am Chris.
I'm Keen.
I'm Jason.
Thanks for listening. See ya.
See you guys later.